when it comes to education in this country right now, our kids don't have a fair fight, especially our kids living in poverty. If you're born poor in the United States of America, when you show up at kindergarten, you will have heard 30 million fewer words. 30 million fewer words than your more affluent peers. Ask any kindergarten teacher in the country whether that makes a difference, and they will tell you it does. What are we doing as a country to fill that gap? Not much. Not much. So by the time kids get to elementary school, their early years, only 1 out of 5 is reading proficiently of the kids that are born poor. 20% are reading at grade level. Ask any middle school teacher or high school teacher whether that's going to make a difference when that child gets to middle school or high school. And where does it end in the land of opportunity for kids that are born into poverty in this country? If you are born poor in the United States of America, your chances of getting a college degree or the equivalent of a college degree are 9 in 100. I know that the teachers and principals and school leaders across Colorado need us to fix No Child Left Behind, and I hope we can finally get it done this time. This bill is a good starting point. It eliminates NCLB's one-size-fits-all approach to education, which we know will not work, and it re-empowers those who are closest to our kids to make the decisions that they need to be made for their benefit. This bill includes many key elements. Importantly, it includes the requirement for annual assessments. And I know testing's not popular. I have 3 kids in the Denver public schools. My 3 daughters go to the schools. I get an annual report on what the testing looks like. And I believe we're over-testing our kids. And I also think we got to think differently about the testing we're doing for teaching and learning, which needs to be continuous and ongoing and inform teachers' instruction and inform the principal's leadership at the school, and testing that's done for accountability. The testing that's done for accountability should be a lot less. We got testimony from the superintendent of the Denver Public Schools, Tom Boasberg, who told us that he thought that for accountability purposes, probably all we needed was 4 hours a year of reading and math. I know the Bennet girls would settle for that. They'd agree with that. They'd do that deal. But until somebody comes up with a better way of measuring where kids are, we need the annual assessments. We have to have them because it's the only way you can show growth. You know, when No Child Left Behind started, it asked and answered a completely irrelevant question, and a question that was so frustrating to the teachers I knew in the Denver public schools and to our principals. It asked, how did this year's 4th graders do compared to last year's 4th graders? Completely irrelevant question. Today, because of work that's been done in Colorado, leading the way, states all over the country now measure growth of kids. And what we ask is, how did this year's 6th graders do compared to how they did as 5th graders, compared to how they did as 4th graders, and compared to everybody else in the state that's got a statistically similar test history? Why is that important? Because it allows you to establish growth or show growth, and then you can actually evaluate how well a school is doing. Because it used to be a No Child Left Behind under adequate yearly progress, which asked that wrong question, how did this year's 4th graders do compared to last year's 4th graders? It used to be that we just measured what's called status. How proficient were the kids? How lucky were those kids? And you might have a school where kids were proficient, but were actually losing ground in terms of academic proficiency, and we were rewarding those schools. We were calling those schools blue ribbon schools. Whereas there were schools in poor parts of town where teachers were killing themselves, students were killing themselves, and they weren't proficient because they started so far behind, but they were getting more than a grade level or 2 grade levels of increased proficiency during the course of the year. You know what we called those schools, Mr. President, under No Child Left Behind? We called those schools failing schools. We called those teachers failing teachers. We called those students failing students who were getting 2 years of growth while their more affluent peers might have been losing ground, and we were saying they were winners. We've moved past that. This bill now acknowledges that. This new version of the Elementary and Secondary School Act, importantly, empowers states to design their accountability systems, giving them more flexibility while ensuring that essential information is included. I think that's an important recognition, led by Chairman Alexander, that there was a real overreach in No Child Left Behind. As a former school superintendent, I can say that when I was superintendent, I used to wonder all the time why Washington was so mean to our teachers and to our kids. And what I've realized since being here is not that everybody here is mean. They mean well. But this place is the farthest place in the universe. I mean that literally. I don't mean that figuratively. I mean it literally. This is the farthest place in the universe from a classroom in the Denver Public Schools, or from a classroom anywhere in this country. And I think No Child Left Behind in many, many ways was an overreach. And the last thing I believe as a school superintendent is that I want to be told how to do the work in Denver. I want to insist that we do the work. I want to insist that children all over this country have a chance, no matter what state they're born into, no matter what neighborhood they're born into. But I don't want people here telling people how to do that work. There's a distinction. I've got